Hey everybody, in this video, we're going to talk about 4 framing concepts that we can do in photography. And I'm talking about 2 methods that we can do with our camera and also 2 methods in editing software like Photoshop. And no, I'm not talking about the framing tool that we have in Photoshop. This is totally different. Are we ready for this? Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to the channel, this is dedicated to photography and as a photo artist, pushing ourselves creatively out of the box. Okay, in this session, I had a discussion with a few photographers and we were talking about the importance of framing. And I said, well, what framing are you talking about? Because in my opinion, not only for me, but other photographers that have been around for a while, we know basically 4 types of framing. So we're going to cover each one, and 2 of them are going to be in the camera. So one is framing in the camera. The second one is still framing in the camera, but some people like to call it frame within a frame. And I'll give you examples of that. And then the other 2 is actually done in your favorite editing software. If you have a good one like Photoshop or maybe Affinity or some other ones out there, as long as they support layers and masking and other things, you can actually do the 2 techniques I'm going to share with you. And then on the very last one, which is number 4, I'll walk through 3 quick projects for you, showing you how to do something that's been around for like maybe over, I think well over 20 years that we are able to do in Photoshop. Are we ready? Let's get started. Okay, we're going to take each concept one at a time. So the first one we're going to talk about, and by the way, I just want to emphasize when I'm talking about framing in software, I'm not talking about the frame feature that we had in Photoshop that I've done demos on weeks and months ago. This is a totally different concept. Okay, so let's start out with the very first one, and that is we've all heard the importance of trying to frame your image within your camera. And that's just a matter of taking that camera and adjusting it, framing it the best way you can to minimize cropping, but we still might crop a little bit, but that's what some people call framing within the camera. So that's the very first one, is the importance of your composition is properly being frame. It takes an eye to catch on to that, to get good with it. That all comes with practice. So again, the very first one is just basic, and that's framing within the camera, your composition. Okay, let's get ready for the second one, and I'm going to show you examples of that, and that's called framing within a frame using, again, your camera. So let's take a look at some examples. Okay, the second concept in framing has to do still with using our camera, but a lot of photographers like to call this a frame within a frame. So let me show you a couple examples here. This image here on the left, these are stock images, but there's one that I'm going to share with you that was not done by me, but it was done by a friend of mine, and she took the image, but I'm in the photograph. But this is an example of framing within a frame. So you have like the arch right here, the doorway or whatever, going into the subject matter right there. Here's another one right here. You see the opening of the arch right there, but your main subject is there, but you're framing your shot within that archway or doorway, or maybe like a large window. Now, a few years ago, I happened to go to San Juan, Puerto Rico. I have to emphasize old San Juan, Puerto Rico. And a good friend that I was traveling with, Diane, is not a photographer, but I handed my camera to her. I pre-focused and set everything up. And I said, I need you to stand here, and I want you to shoot down here. And I'm going to walk by, stop. I'm going to pose. And we did like 3 or 4 shots. She picked this one that was her favorite one. Why? I have no idea why. But this is just a great example of how I'm using these openings, the arches here, to frame within a frame to the subject right here. So again, just to reiterate, this is taking our camera again and finding something very unique where we can actually visually do something called a frame within a frame. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, you have to have the eye to see that and practice those things, and not that difficult to do. Now let's go to the next one, and that is I want to use software creatively. So we're going to do number 3, and that's a little bit more on the creative side when it comes to framing. Are we ready? Let's get into it. Okay, the third concept is a very creative one. I was actually at a workshop that we did here in Michigan a few years ago, and basically it was called framing. And let me share with you what was done. And I just did something creative at that workshop. and that is we had a model, we had somebody holding a frame, and we were coming up with all different, say, ideas and concepts here. And so I took this photograph and I had an idea in my head, and then I had another image, and I actually did a minor composite. It's not something major, but I took that with the frame, had to just get rid of the hands over here, and I had it placed on a stock image of a wall of a woman holding a frame, and this is what I ended up with. So this is something very creative in doing something called framing. It's like she's walking right out of the frame photograph into the real world and stuff like that. And that was a big hit. But again, it's just a very creative way of physically using a frame in an actual, say, workshop to come up with a finished product like that. So that's the third concept, is think creatively on how you might use a large frame and do something within that frame with a subject matter. Could have maybe been a still life even, but think creatively out of the box to come up with something like that. So that's a different concept, a very creative framing technique. And now we're going to move to number 4, and this is the one I'm actually going to demo in Photoshop. I'll do 3 projects for you, and that is a concept of a basic, simple framing concept, but yet we can be very creative with it, that I've been doing on and off for over 20 years in Photoshop. But you can actually do this in any good editing software that supports layers with maybe masking and a few other things. So let's dive into it right now. Okay, and the 4th framing concept is something I've been doing well over 20 years. As long as you have a decent editing software that supports layers and selections, you should be able to do something similar to this, but Photoshop might go to a further level with this. So let's take a look at Photoshop right now. I'm going to work on 3 different projects quickly for you. One is going to be the still life, one's going to be a landscape, and then this is a stock image I had, 15, 20 years ago when I used to teach Photoshop internationally. So let me show you the concept. We'll start with the still life here. Number 1 is, once the image is opened up, come over here to select your rectangle selection tool, rectangle marquee tool right there. And then I'm going to share a little tip for you, or trick, and that is if you click and drag randomly anywhere, as long as I don't let go of the mouse, my finger is still being pushed down on the mouse, you can hold the space bar, which allows you to move that selection around. So I might want to frame my shot like this, or my frame like this, and then I'm going to click and drag down, and I'm going to move over to the right. Purposely, I'm going to go too far to the right to show you something else. And that is, if I let go and say to myself, oh, I wish I had that centered more, I went too far to the right. Well, we can always go to the select drop-down menu here in the Photoshop menu and choose Transform Selection. Once that's activated, I come over here, I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and I can readjust my selection to have a look like that maybe, and then enter on the keyboard to accept that. So basically what I did was I just reframed that selection, resized it, could move it around, that kind of thing. So always remember that if you change your mind on something, go to the select drop-down menu and choose Transform Selection. Okay, so with that done, in fact, I'm going to just tap on my right arrow or left arrow key a little bit to adjust that. What I want to do now is copy up this layer. So I'm going to do Control J, Command J on a Mac. And here's what happens. If you've been following me for the last few years, any method that you choose to make a selection, doesn't matter how you made that selection, the basic rule is this: whatever you do next only affects the selected area. So when I made that selection and I did Control J or Command J on a Mac to copy up that layer, well, what it did was, let me hide the background one, it copied up only the active selection I had made. So key rule to remember: when you make a selection, whatever you do next only affects that selected area. So now that I have that done, I'm going to be on this layer, come down here. In fact, let me just move this up here a little bit, and I'm going to choose Effects in the Layers panel, and in there I'm going to choose Stroke. Now when I choose Stroke and the dialog box opens up, a lot of times it just defaults to white right here, and over here it says Size. I'm going to move this way to the right so we can see this, and let me zoom in a bit on our image so we can see this frame a little bit better. Okay, now with that selected, what I'm going to do is I think by default, if you've never been here before, it's going to be set to outside as your position, and you're going to get these rounded corners right here. You might like that. I'm not saying you shouldn't have that, but outside versus inside versus center. So I prefer, just again, you might like the other one. I prefer inside right there. Now, blending modes, I'm leaving alone to normal. I don't want to blend this. Now what I want to do is something a little bit more creative, and that is I'm going to choose bevel and emboss here. And I'm going to show you something that when I move this, say, depth slider, you don't see nothing happening right now. And that is because I'm doing white on white, because you can see this white right here. So I'm going to go back to stroke, and I'm going to change the color of my stroke, or frame if you want to call it that. And I'm going to choose, maybe take the eyedropper over, click on the red. Well, I don't care for that. How about a green color? I don't really. How about a light green right there? And how about something off the vase right there? Yeah, I'm going to take that color right there. Okay, since I changed the color, obviously change that stroke, but I'm using the stroke for my frame. Now when I go over to bevel and emboss right here, and you see depth right here, see what happens here as I move this across? It's changing the look of that. And you can play with these different techniques. Maybe you want a hard chisel like that. Ooh, I like that. It's better. So as I make my adjustments on the depth, fine tune that to size. You see what's happening there as I adjust that. So you might like to use that for framing your image right there, and maybe not. I mean, I'm just giving you some options or choices. Now, when I click on OK to accept that, let me pull back on this a bit so we can see this. There's just an example of now using a simple frame like this, but it's really a stroke, but I'm using that stroke as a frame for my composition to really isolate that vase with a flower in it to give it a different look. Okay, so I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to do something a little bit more creative. By the way, if you're learning anything here, if you can do me a favor, and that is like the video, subscribe if you have not subscribed, and hit that notification bell. The next time I upload a video, you'll get notified on that. All right, so on this one is a landscape shot. And what I want to do is bring attention, let's say, to this hut or whatever I want to call it, this building right here. So again, I'm just going to grab the rectangle selection tool, just do a click and drag motion, but I'm going to do something different here. After I get that done, and again, I'm going to do Control J, Command J on a Mac to copy up that selection, come to the Effects drop-down menu and just choose Stroke. And with this one, I'm just going to go with white as a default setting right there. It's a little bit too big. I'm going to change the size of this. And again, you could add bevel and emboss just to save time. I'm not going to do that. But, and you could actually do, hey, let's put a drop shadow. If you want to, add a drop shadow, you can move that drop shadow around by just moving your mouse there to grab the drop shadow if you wish to do that. Again, these are all choices, not right or wrong there. But here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to accept this by clicking on OK. Now I'm going to select my background layer that has my base image, and I'm going to grab the Oreo cookie dipped in milk, and I'm just going to play. I'm going to choose, we can do brightness and contrast, hue and saturation. How about black and white? And just convert that to black and white. You can play the sliders over here if you want to adjust the intensity of the black and white or something. But again, there's something creative where I'm framing out part of my landscape shot to bring attention to you while I dropped in a black and white adjustment layer. But again, you could have chosen any adjustment layer you wanted. You might have jumped up hue and saturation, whatever you want to do. Think creatively by using this technique. Okay, now the very last picture I'm going to work on, I'm going to do a little bit different, throw in the curveball here, and that is when I grab the rectangle marquee tool, and again, I'm going to click and drag, just randomly, I'm going to drop it in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Select drop-down menu, choose Transform Selection. Now not only allows me to resize this, and reshape it, but I'm going to go to the outer corner here, and I'm going to rotate this on an angle. And then I'm going to click inside and click and drag to reposition this where I want to reposition that. Maybe use my arrow keys to adjust that down a little bit. I'm going to hold the shift key and move it in a little bit like that to add a little bit of interest. Enter on the keyboard. There's my active selection. So now I've got it tilted. Control J, Command J on a Mac to copy that up. Let's just do some basic quick things, and that is just add the stroke again. So on the effects button right there in the drop down, I'm just going to choose stroke. Let that open up. Let me just readjust the size of that stroke a little bit. Maybe something like that, because I still want to capture her face right there. And again, click on OK to accept that. And then again, I can go to the background right there. And let's choose, something from the Oreo cookie dipped in milk. Let's do something different here. Let's go like hue and saturation. I might want to just pull the saturation down a little bit on that image. So as I move that down, you can see how it just makes that pop. Or if I just want it all the way to make it a black and white, I mean, that's up to me, or let's you don't want to oversaturate that, but maybe shift the colors a bit. I mean, all this is all creativity based on, your look and what you want to do right there. But I like just a little bit of saturation showing. So it's not quite black and white. We got some color in there. So hopefully this all made sense to you. Hopefully you've learned something. And again, please like the video. That helps send this out to other people that have a similar interest in using Photoshop along with photography. So again, like the video, subscribe if you have not, hit that notification bell. And hopefully this makes sense. There are 4 major things that we can do creatively. 2 are, just as a quick recap, 2 that we can do in our camera that I talked about earlier. And then the other 2 is with software. One was more compositing type, and this one is very simple creative techniques in framing an image. All right, everybody, so let's try some of these techniques, see what you can come up with. Until next time, again, let's think creatively out of the box, and I mean literally out of the box. Until next time, see ya.